Okay, what similarities and differences do you observe in the way that each writer introduces and begins developing the character?
Hold on, let's see what I notes. Who did I write as the protagonist? I think it was
It's like Balram.
Battle. Yeah, okay, yeah. For me, I wrote what I looked at, what I've seen so far is that he's a very open person. He doesn't really care about most of the things he says. Like one thing he had said is many of my best ideas, in fact, borrowed from my ex-employer or his brother or someone else whom I was driving about. I confess, Mr. Premier, I am not an original thinker, but I am an original listener. So he seems like he's a super honest person, speaks his mind, generally does whatever he wants. Anyone around him doesn't really affect him. He just kind of does his own thing. He doesn't really care.
I said the author like provides kind of like an inside perspective through like his internal thoughts, and I kind of like how the author like uses like a lot of like humor and kind of like is straight up with what he thinks, and it kind of like develops his personality and character. So it's like in every tough situation he can find like humor in it, or he can find like a way to like almost benefit himself. I think that like he is like stepping towards being successful because he's like super optimistic, like whether it be he's like wiping or like massaging someone's feet or like wiping this dirt off the floor. Like he finds ways to always like learn and like take stuff to his advantage.
Yeah, he seems like a very like independent person. He doesn't really need to rely on anyone else. He can find his way around anything without having to use outside resources or have anybody help him.
Yeah, I think he also got that way just because he was like from the darkness, and like once you kind of live there, you're kind of on your own, and like no one's really gonna be there holding your hand, kind of like helping you and like wanting you to succeed. So I think it was up to him, and like super like self-driven, that if he wanted to be successful and like make money and like live a better life, then it was like completely up to him.
Alright, I guess we can go to the next question now. What similarities and differences do you observe in the ways that each writer introduces and begins developing the setting of their novels?
I said that the author kind of like introduces like the setting of like the darkness and the light to create kind of like a clear difference in the setting between wealthy people and the people who kind of live in like poverty. I think that like I think the setting in like India kind of remains the same, but the perspective of like wealth and like the type of people that live there varies. So it's kind of like the lightness is like symbolizing like being wealthy and like healthy and all that stuff, versus like the darkness symbolizes like poverty and like unhygienic people.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much most of what I had said. Is yeah, like there's parts of India that you'll see that like it go from rich to like very poor quick, and I mean most of the setting of the whole place is pretty much accurate to what you see in India like nowadays. With how there's all the streets, it's like very like it's like a one-lane road, but also with all the stores and stuff on the side, it's kind of just like in general the setting you can see it pretty much with how it is connected like the real life world of India.
Yeah, I think throughout the story we're gonna keep seeing him kind of um, like be in a setting where it's more light. Like I think now we kind of see how it's like a little bit lighter with like the chandeliers and stuff.
Yeah.
And how like he was in the dark and he was super poor, and then he got his new job and he was like in the light with the chandelier. So I think that like as he continues to keep going up, he's gonna keep having like these light symbolism to kind of like emphasize like his wealth and like how he's being successful.
Mm-hmm. Alright, we can move on to the next question. What similarities difference do you observe in the way that each writer has chosen to organize and structure the first few pages of their story? What is each writer doing to build interest and set up later sections of their narrative?
I said the author has like a unique kind of approach to the book. So like the whole book is like basically a huge letter writing to the leader of like China, and he starts the book by kind of like directly addressing Mr. Premier and being like, Mr. Premier, in fact, each time when great men like you visit our country say it. So it's kind of just like he's directly telling him, and he kind of writes the whole book too, like with the intention of telling him like the real truth of India, and like to make sure that like the actual story of somebody living in the darkness is spread versus like the false stuff that the government is spreading out.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much of what I said. Is yeah, he just kind of straight got to the point as soon as the start of the book. But also with every new chapter, there's always something new. That's like there's always in each chapter there's always something crazy that like happens at the start, or he talks about something that's like very important. So I mean, he kind of instead of waiting to develop, he kind of gives us the point straight away. But then also throughout everything, he gives little moments. But he just kind of gets straight to the objective right away.
Yeah, I think that when he kind of talks about like killing Mr. Ashok, he like briefly mentions it in the beginning, but then he doesn't like actually talk about it. So I think it creates like suspense because the readers are all kind of just like waiting for him to like actually tell a story on like how he killed him.
I mean, there's this last question. What similarities and difference do you observe in the way that each writer is dealing with these topics and themes?
I say just throughout the novel, like the theme of being like self-driven is just distinct because Barham, like again, if he wants to make it out and like be successful and be different than the other people in India, he has to be self-motivated and he has to figure out ways to like help himself because again, he doesn't really have a family that's going to support him and help him like become wealthy. He doesn't have parents, and like the other people in his life don't really care as much. It's kind of like every man for themselves. So I think that his desire to be successful is like one of his most important traits, and it's like he's had a bunch of opportunities that many people again like don't see it as an opportunity to like get better and learn, but to him it's like everything.
Yeah, because for the theme, the self-made man, I mean, he's kind of just doing it all on his own. There are people around him, but I mean, most of it's what he's doing it by himself. There's not really, he doesn't seem to have much help from anyone. But also with the whole like, there's also the other theme like corruption that we look at, like with how there was one page where it was talking about. It was in the page. It was in like I think it was the fourth morning. It was talking about how the government, whatever, wants them to pay a certain amount of like money, and like he doesn't really like. There's no reason for him to do that due to the fact of like it's not. He didn't do anything wrong. There's nothing. So like these people are coming after him for no general reason. So like there's a corruption, but also with India, like in general, being like they tend to have this. It just seems like. Well, yeah, that's right. I can't really. Don't know how to go further with that.
Yeah, I don't know if you've gotten there, but basically, like, Pinky, Madame Pinky and Mr. Ashok, they, like, drink and drive.
Yeah.
And then they, like, hit the dude.
Yes, I have.
Yeah, he, like, ran over the guy and then, like, blamed it on Barham. And I don't really know what happens afterward because I haven't gone there, but again, like, when Barham talks about it, and he talks about, like, all of the servants and the drivers in jail, and how they're like loyal to their masters, it's kind of just like the reason why the wealthy stay wealthy and like the poor stay poor is because like again, like there's no sense of like
honesty or anything like that.
Yeah, there's
no one's really honest about what happens. They try to cover up or blame others for the mistakes they make.
Yeah, there's just no one, or like there's no system to really keep like the rich and wealthy like accountable. And it's like, I think he talked about how even a judge is gonna like, even if Barham tried to say that Mr. Ashok and Madame Pinky like killed him, then like the judge doesn't care because again it's like it's totally normalized for the servants to take all the blame.
Yeah.
And also like I think he talked about it in like the fifth night or something like that, and he was talking about how even if Barham did go up to the judge and say that like Madame Pinky and Mr. Ashok killed the dude that was walking across the street, like people would find like Barham's family and like kill them and burn them and like beat them. So again, like it's another form of corruption of how like the people stay at the top.
Yeah.
That's something to talk about for 5 minutes. What about what aspects of the plot or character do you think is important or will pay off? So like, what do you think are his best traits?
I think with like Valor, or however you say his name, I think him being his self-made, like being very like nonchalant about everything. I think in the end result that's gonna pay off for him. Eventually, the goods will come to him. I think with him not caring about others, trying to just focus on himself, get around. I think eventually, in the end, that will pay off for it. I think that'll pay off for him just due to the fact of having the right mindset and everything that he does have now. It just will benefit him later.
I think his like you said, his willingness to like be self-made and like work hard is also really important. But I think that I think he's really like clever with what he does. Like I think I think that was like the second something, but it was when he tried to figure out like how to get the other driver fired, and he kind of like picked up on his body language and how he wasn't going to sleep at night and stuff. And then he followed him like to his church or something, and he was eating because he was Buddhist, I think, instead of Muslim, something like that. But and then he got him fired so then he could get the job. And so it's kind of like he uses his surroundings to his advantage and really makes sure that he's like observant, like he said.
He's a very observant person.
Yeah, and I think that it definitely helps him being able to like stay in the moment and just take things to his advantage. Like whenever they were like in the cars, like all of the drivers were waiting, and then he went into the mall because he picked up that Mr. Ashok was wearing like a cool USA t-shirt or something like that, and then he picked up that he could go buy it himself. So it's just little things that's like thinking out of the box.
Like the having specific because there's no fluctuation.
What other questions can I answer?
What do you think is gonna happen like towards the end? Like, do you think he's gonna be as successful as he's describing himself to be?
With the way that it's gone so far, I feel like in the end he will be successful. I think that he'll be like even more successful than what he wants to be. I feel like with how observant and self-made he is, he just has everything he needs to get him to that point. Now it's just playing all the right cards and being smart about what he does to progress to that certain level of wealth.
Yeah, I think he's either gonna be like super successful and like he's gonna help his family out and move him out, and I think he's gonna like invent something just because he talks about how he's like an entrepreneur, or I think that he's gonna be like somewhat successful, but like in his eyes, that I think it's either like he's successful to others, like that that see him, yeah, like, or he thinks that he's personally like successful. So this is kind of like I think that success overall is kind of like subjective a little bit, because I can say that she's super successful, she looks so cool and all that stuff, but then like she could probably be like, oh, I'm probably not successful, like I still have things to do and stuff. So it's just like different perspectives.
It's more of a mind game.
Yeah. Let's see.
So really the focus of your essay should be on that complexity and then how the devices are being used to show that complexity. Does that make sense?
Do you think that if he had the money, he'd help his family out? Because before he like ran away from them.
I
He
think
got mad at them.
he'd help him a little bit. I think mainly he'd go back, show the wealth, kind of just more taunted to them. I think he'd help them a bit, but I don't think he'd like help them too much.
Yeah, I don't know, honestly, because in the beginning when he was supposed to send his checks to his family, he didn't, like, at all. But then now, when he's, like, the new driver in, like, the New Delhi, he sends, like, his whole entire paycheck. So, I don't really know, honestly.
It's most likely, I think. And with all that being said, I think generally he probably will then, though. Just due to the fact if he's sending checks now, then most likely.
Yeah.
If he has money to play and all of this extra money to use, I mean, there's really not a better way to use it. You just send some, help out your family. And try and get them out of the
Yeah. And then
poor type of
slums.
area.
Do you think if he gets super wealthy, he'll have servants?
comment type thing if you want to annotate your passage. Yeah. Okay.
I don't. That's a hard one. I don't.
I think it's gonna be easier on the
I think in general he probably will, just due to the fact of like it can do everything he doesn't want to do.
I think he'll have servants. He just won't be as like cruel.
Yeah, it just won't be as cruel
Just
to them.
'cause
I
he
think he'll be a
knows.
lot more lenient. He won't try to
You'll be able
Yeah.
to
blame them for everything that goes wrong. I think he'll be more on their side, more willing to help them and everything.
All right.